RP Sanjeev Goenka Group, growing legacies.
After weeks of speculation and despite pressure from the United States, India and Russia have inked a $5 billion deal for the purchase of Russia's S-400 Triumph air defense system. The deal has been sealed at the India-Russia annual summit in Delhi between Russian President Vladimir Putin and Prime Minister Modi. The United States was quick to issue a statement after the deal was signed, saying a waiver of U.S. policy that extends sanctions to any country that buys weapons from Russia is not guaranteed. So what is the significance of this deal for India's defense, as well as our ties with Russia and the United States? To speak more on this, I'm joined now by defense expert and senior journalist Ajai Shukla. Ajay, thank you for joining us here on Bloomberg Quint. Let's start by understanding what exactly we have agreed to buy today. Tell us about the S-400 Triumph system.
Well, basically, we have bought a very, very advanced air defense system that shoots down incoming enemy aircraft at very long ranges. Now, existing air defense systems shoot down aircraft at 25, 30, maximum 40 kilometers range, but the S-400 has a range of 400 kilometers, which basically means that if it's deployed in the Delhi area, in the National Capital Territory, it can shoot down Pakistani aircraft even before they cross the Pakistani border into India. So it gives you a very long range, it gives you reaction time, and it gives you a far higher hit capability. Now, what makes this system badly needed in the Indian context is air defense is basically the responsibility of the Indian Air Force to defend Indian territory against incoming enemy aircraft. And the Indian Air Force, as everyone knows by now, is very short of fighter squadrons. There are only 31 fighter squadrons, going on 30 in fact now, against a requirement of 42. So the air defense wherewithal of the Indian Air Force, if I may use that phrase, is sadly depleted. And adding S-400 batteries or regiments to the air defense of India basically takes off from the job that fighter squadrons would otherwise be doing. So this eases the workload on the Indian Air Force. It provides a higher degree of protection, and most importantly, perhaps in this case, it services the India-Russia relationship very strongly. What does this do for India-Russia relations, which were seeing some strain as India shifted towards America in the last few years? The India-Russia relationship has been gradually devalued over a period of time as India has inclined more towards Western systems. There's been the belief in the Indian sort of military that Russian systems, while they are rugged, they don't work out cheap in the life cycle or service life cycle that they sort of undergo while serving, which can last for anything up to 30 to 40 years. So you end up getting a less reliable system on which you have to spend more on maintenance. And compared to Western systems, they required a lot of effort and care and expense during their service life. So India has shifted focus to buying Western systems, and you know, in the past 10 years, it's bought a lot of American systems, systems like the C-17 transport aircraft, the C-130 transport aircraft, the Boeing P-8I maritime reconnaissance aircraft. And it's had a very good experience with all these aircraft. It's found that while it may have to pay a little more at the time of buying the system, it works out cheaper in the long run because they are cheaper to run and maintain. So India has been shifting focus from a Russian-centric purchase orientation to a more Western-oriented purchase orientation. But that has devalued the India-Russia relationship, because one of the very strong foundations for the India-Russia relationship has been defense sales and defense supplies. And the Russian defense industry, as it were, is very heavily dependent on orders from India. It sustains the Russian defense industry. So from that point of view, entering into the purchase agreement for the S-400, which is a $5 billion plus agreement, it sustains and nourishes the Russian defense industry, and therefore sustains and nourishes the India-Russia relationship. So it's important from the New Delhi-Moscow point of view.
Okay, let me now come to CAATSA, the Countering America's Adversaries Through Sanctions Act, and the statement which came from the US Embassy, said that we cannot prejudge any sanctions decision, but it also does say that CAATSA is not intended to impose damage to the military capabilities of our allies or partners. Can we assume that America will let this one go?
Oh, well, you can't assume anything when it comes to President Trump. He's inherently unpredictable. But the fact is that no senior US official, whether the Secretary of State, whether the National Security Advisor, and especially not Defense Secretary Jim Mattis, none of them want to damage the India-US relationship. And the belief is that while the sanctions regime has been directed at Russia and North Korea and Iran, and at countries like Turkey that have been buying from them, countries like India and Vietnam, who are heavily dependent on Russian weaponry, traditionally they've been so, have got sort of caught in the mill, so to say. They are collateral damage, and therefore that waiver was negotiated to provide the American president with a way of exempting India and Vietnam from those sanctions. So I think it's very likely that that exemption will come through. America was playing a little bit of hardball to try and steer India away from the S-400 deal. It didn't want, Russian defense industry to benefit from that. Yeah. But I think when push comes to shove, Trump will probably, in the interests of the India-US relationship, invoke the sanctions waiver.
Well, a bargaining chip in Trump's hands for sure. Thank you so much, Ajai Shukla, for joining us and explaining to us the importance of this pact signed today.
Thank you.